I want to introduce the girls who are here that are also running on a ticket with Councilman Andre Wallace. We have Joyce Brown and we have
Hello,
Danielle
everyone.
Scala. And I want y'all to take a minute, introduce. A lot of people still, you know what, for real, I've heard, because Black Westchester gives me the advantage of talking to everybody, and I actually hear from everybody, even those that don't like me. I still hear from them. And one of the biggest things, it was like, who are they? I see them on the picture with Andre Wallace, like Charlie's Angels, but who are they? So I want to give the people a chance for y'all to introduce yourselves and tell the people, who are you?
Okay, well, thank you for having us, AJ, and happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I
Joyce
forgot that
Brown.
too. Happy Father's Day. I didn't say that. Yes.
My name is Joyce Brown, and I'm an attorney for about 18 years, resident of Mount Vernon for about 20 years.
Pull your mic or speak. You know what? And that's been. You have to speak louder. And also at the
what?
at the debate or whatever,
Uh-huh.
people said they couldn't hear you clearly. Like you were low. I don't know if it was their system.
So speak like
so
right
just
here?
yeah, just
That's
speak.
good?
Just speak a little louder. So because I did have one person said I can barely hear you.
Okay. So I'll start again by saying happy Father's Day. Is that better?
Yep. There you go.
All right. My name is Joyce Brown. I'm an attorney, undergraduate degree in finance from Georgetown University. Lived in Mount Vernon about 20 years now with my two children, 15-year-old son and 8-year-old daughter. Choosing to get involved. I'm not a politician, but I'm choosing to get involved because now is the time to help our city. We're in a crisis. Things need to get done. I didn't really want to run, but people convinced me, we need someone on the council who's going to be honest. We need a lawyer on the council. We don't have a lawyer running. We don't have a lawyer on the council, which I found to be kind of crazy because it's a legislative body. So I said, you know what? I'm going to run. I want to help this city. I love this city. I work here, and that's why I'm here.
Who are you and why are you running?
My name is Danielle Scala, and I'm a lifelong resident of the city of Mount Vernon. I'm surprised, AJ, that people are saying they don't know me. I've been around for a while.
But you know what,
I've
though?
worked-
One of the things, I didn't know that you were in the planning department.
I'm going to tell you that, yes.
You were out front. You were in the trenches.
Tell you that.
And people didn't, yeah.
I'm going to tell
Right,
you
behind the
that.
scenes.
People may not know my face, but they know my name because I've been working in government for over like 20 some years, and as you said, they may not know oh, that's Danielle Scala, because you know what, one thing about Danielle Scala, she did work behind the scene. You know her work because she did a lot of stuff to help the community for over 20 some years, and but you may not, physically know her because she's not the kind of person that seeks out glory. She does the work of the community. That's who she is. She worked as the director of a housing program for people with HIV and AIDS. I was the director of, actually the administrator for the Continuum of Care for the Homeless program, which also provides housing for homeless people with disabilities. In addition, prior to doing that, I was the director of Victims Assistance Services through Westcop, and I worked out of the Mount Vernon Police Department. So over the years, I've had an opportunity to do a lot of things to help the community. That's what I went to school for. I'm a graduate of John Jay College of Criminal Justice, CUNY, and I was trained to do public administration and public service. So I'm really doing what I was trained to do and what I've been called to do. The other thing is that I did serve as the deputy commissioner for a period of time as well. So if you
Deputy
look
commissioner of what?
of planning, the
Okay.
planning department. So I have vast knowledge of government, how it works, what needs to get done. I'll give you an example of some of my work. I told people, in another forum about the work that I had done. One thing significant was helping the homeless. If you notice, prior to 3 years ago, there were no homeless people. You could visibly see homelessness in many of the cities in Westchester County, but you did not see it in the city of Mount Vernon. Why is that? Because of the work that I did. I was charged with cleaning or keeping the streets free of homeless individuals and providing them with services and finding them pathways to housing. So basically, we helped a lot of people during that time. I was instrumental in taking an encampment of homeless people that lived behind the Domino's Pizza on Gramerton Avenue. It was about 20-some people who had set up home there, because what happened is once one comes, it becomes like a community of people. We were able to take those individuals and not rip them out of their place they considered home, but we went to them with compassion and worked with them, having dignity and humility, and we were able to take them and find them services, find them housing. Some of them went on and got employment. We explored sources of income so they could actually afford the housing. Additionally, there was another man who was living in the Best Buy parking lot of the project down on Sanford Boulevard that the city of Mount Vernon did, Target, Best Buy. He was living on a mattress under the stairwell for over 9 years. When I discovered him there, what I did is put my jeans on, went out with the people that I supervised, and physically, every Tuesday for about 2 months, we visited him on a regular basis until we could get him to trust us, and we eventually got him housed as well. So that's the kind of work that I do, and that's, what I do. There's other examples, but maybe we'll get into that later. So people may not know me, but you visibly see the work that I've done within Mount Vernon based on the things I just explained to you, AJ.
Well, let me first off, let me pull back a little bit and give y'all an official People Before Politics a round of applause. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, with that said, let me go right into what both of y'all, like, you were in the background and you weren't in the forefront. You were in the background getting the work done.
Absolutely.
You're not a politician. What makes, and both of y'all answer this question, what makes you want to step up now onto the center stage and be, you're not in the background, step up now? What makes you want to run for council?
Yeah, I decided, AJ, to get involved because I was really, really, really concerned about the things that I see going on in the community. I'm a mother of 3. I have children ages 8, 2, and 1. And when I look at the community, my heart aches for the community. My heart aches because I grew up in Mount Vernon, on the south side of Mount Vernon. And I know as a child what Mount Vernon was. And we just had the best childhood living in Mount Vernon. There were times that my girlfriend and I could walk from, I lived over by South 10th Avenue and Kingsbridge Road, and she lived on 4th Street and 2nd Avenue. And there was nights when we were 11 or 12 in junior high, we would walk from her home to my home or vice versa. And we walked those streets not with any fear, not with any trepidation, but we walked those streets knowing we were safe, knowing that, we knew people in the community, and if we got into any kind of situation, those people would come to our rescue. There wasn't that fear that exists right now. There weren't gangs. There weren't shootings. As a matter of fact, when there were shootings, it was a big deal. My grandparents lived on South 11th Avenue, and I can remember them finding someone dead, I want to say like in some alley or something. I was really young when this happened. And the paper then was something called the Daily Argus.
Argus, yes.
And I can remember the adults standing around on the porch, and it was the biggest thing. And that's when people walked neighborhoods, and as the neighbors came by, the neighbors were commenting, and they were all talking. It was like a big deal to see that somebody got murdered in Mount Vernon, because when I grew up, it just didn't happen like that. But my children are living in a different city.
It's a different
time.
World.
Exactly.
Like the TV show, a different world than
where
we
came from.
Exactly.
Very different.
Even when I went to high school, it's much different from.
It's a different country too.
Absolutely.
I mean, look at the country.
Yeah.
The leaders.
Absolutely. And as I stated, I just want my children to have a better place. Can I move? Yes, I can move. And when we were out collecting signatures, I spoke with the former mayor at an event that I saw him, Mayor Davis, and I said, Mayor Davis, that was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. I was a district leader in the past, and it was relatively easy, and people were cooperative when it came to getting signatures. This time out, it wasn't so easy. Number one is it was dark. It was cold because they moved the date for collecting signatures early to actually make this election coincide with other federal state elections.
Right.
I meant to say, yeah. So
I think that, and let me get there. I think that's an experiment. I think they
Right.
wanted, because they got the big elections next year, and I
Uh-huh.
think they wanted to make sure they wanted to try it out this year
And see how
to
it
see if it
worked
worked before
Right.
Before they roll it out on the big
yeah,
election.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
really,
yeah.
and they get mad because I've told the state senators that this is your experiment, wasn't it? They denied
Well, because
that
they
it
know
was an
you're probably
experiment.
right. They know
Right.
you're probably right.
So just let me just finish my point, get back to my point real quick, and then I'll let Joyce go. So it was really difficult because people were, kind of not happy about signing the petition. So it was really, really, really difficult to get people to participate in this process, because what a lot of people said are three things. The first message was, I'm fed up, and they were just tired of everything going on here. The third one was they were saying enough is enough. I mean, the second one is enough, and enough is enough. And the third one was, I'm moving. And I said, I'm moving is an option for me, but it's not a solution. We have to find a solution to the things that are ailing this community. And like Joyce said, I'm not a politician, but I'm someone who has a huge amount of experience in government and community service. And if I'm not a part of the solution, then I'm joining the problem. So when they say you see something, you say something, I had to get involved, AJ. Again, I'm not a politician, and I'm also a person who shies away from public, I want to say, exposure, because I'm kind of like a private person. But this is something I had to do because our community is, I said, it's a community on life support in desperate need of resurrection and resuscitation.
Okay. Woo. So I'm getting involved now because, like I said, I spoke to a bunch of my neighbors, and there have recently been some garbage issues. The same old issues about the potholes and street signs not being able to be read, and the street lights not being repaired. And at some point, I say, like I said, I'm not a politician, but I have to get involved, because if no one gets involved, then nothing's ever going to change. And people, like Danielle said, we'd go around collecting signatures, and people would say, well, why should I vote? What's the difference? It's not going to make a difference. But it is going to make a difference, because if you don't vote, then your vote is for the other person. So we can't give up on this city. We have to vote. I'm bringing my legal skills and my financial skills to the table to help this city out. I've heard a lot of people say, we really need a lawyer. We need a few different people on the council. We don't have a council that's as effective as it could be. I know we have a corporation council, but that's not a council that's on the council itself. I'm willing to get up there and fight. I have 2 children too, like Danielle, and I want to make this city better for them. So that's why I'm here.
Someone named Robin Elizabeth on Facebook had comments when you were talking, said, telling the truth, and that's what's missing here. And someone named Lisa James said, Joyce Brown for City Council. I want to welcome everybody who's tuned in. Sandy Barnaby, Don Powell. Shout to Don Powell for DP printing the shirt that I have on, and all the Black Westchester shirts with the cover were printed by Don Powell of DP Printing in New Rochelle. So check him out. Give him a little shout out. He's tuned in. Nas Duncan's tuned in. Ken Bright said Happy Father's Day, Mr. Davis and AJ. Anthony Old School Mitchell said Happy Father's Day. Shout to him and Happy Father's Day to him. Damon K. Jones is tuned in. Tasha Young is tuned in. John Carlo is tuned in. Mutombo Muhammad, Cheryl Blue Brownlee Fox. That's a mouthful. I never get it right. Lisa Clark Norman and John Jones, former Mount Vernon police officer. John Jones.
Hi, John.
Are tuned in. Brooke Jones, Westchester Correction Association, Brooke Jones. And I'm not sure where Bob is, but he's tuned in. Dr. Bob is tuned in.
Dr. Bob is right here.
Oh, okay. Well, he's tuned in and Paul Anthony.
He's tuning in live. He's right here.
Right. Paul Anthony Cuesta. I always mispronounce your name. Shout out to him. And Atif Khalil and White Plains Common Council woman Nadine Hunt Robinson. She was actually, I think, the first African American councilwoman in White Plains.
Wow.
She's tuned in. So that being said, and also a little, everybody's been getting on me. I drink too much soda, and everybody says they see me on there and they need to cut out. I have a bottle of seltzer water, and this is not what I drink. I'm trying, yo. So I just wanted to, and Bob's working on me, so I'm just saying it right now.
Good for you. Good
So,
for you.
so I ain't said I gave up the Pepsi though, but
change. You can change a little bit at a time.
This is my third day in a row drinking some of
Seltzer?
these flavored seltzers. I'm still not there. I ain't gonna lie, but
They're
I'm
wonderful.
trying.
But it's
I'm
eventually
trying.
small baby steps.
I'm
baby
trying.
steps.
They're
I'm trying.
wonderful. And
I'm
if you
trying.
want soda, AJ, a trick I use, I pour 100% juice, maybe a little bit in it to kind of make it like it's soda, but it's not. That's a trick.
Okay.
What is it?
It's
Is it
the
the sugar?
bubbles.
100% juice,
my
nothing with sugar.
My doctor told me about this. He said because of the bubbles and you know, because it's what
Yeah.
it is, the bubbles of the soda that I
Yeah.
like. That
Okay.
So he
the
said so.
carbonation.
So Nadine Hunt Robinson, happy Father's Day. AJ Mayor Davis, Brother Arthur Muhammad's tuned in, and Charles Stern. I thought I said your name, but if I didn't, I apologize. I did earlier. So Charles Stearns is tuned in.
Hi, Charles.
Yeah, yes. So we and Dr. Bob has entered the studio. Let me switch screens, real quick. Let me switch screens so people can see the brother right there. Dr. Bob, since you just walked in, do you have any questions for these two council candidates? No.
I feel like a deer in headlights.
Right.
No, you can continue on. I think the line of questioning that you were on was proven to be quite fruitful, and I'll chime in with a question as soon as I get settled in and take a sip of my seltzer.
Not a problem. So this is for Joyce because I actually
Yes.
heard this, I believe,
What
during
did you hear?
the debate at
Riverside Memorial.
Fleetwood Citizen Society, Fleetwood Neighborhood Association, and others put it together. One of them was saying, I think, I'm not sure which candidate, but we don't need a lawyer. We already got. So why is it important for a lawyer? Did you feel, as a city councilwoman, why do you feel that will?
Well, it's interesting because the person who said that is a paralegal. So I said, well, wouldn't you want a lawyer? Because it's a legislative body. You know, they decide the laws of the city. They help decide the laws. They help pass the laws. It would only make sense to have a lawyer on there with their skills. You know, when you go to law school, you actually learn to think like a lawyer, to write like a lawyer. And those are skills that, you know, ordinary people don't have. Not to make it sound like I'm, you know, a superwoman, but they're just different skills that you bring to the table, and it's very important when you're making laws to understand and how to read laws, how to interpret laws, all that, you know, you learn in law school. So that it's so important. I can't even believe that there's not one lawyer on the council. There should be at least one lawyer on the council, and I've heard that from a lot of people.
I think that might be important because in this previous 4 years, it's shown that the corporation council that represents the whole government
Is not
has only been representing one part more than the others. So
right. So you need
maybe
So you need someone on the council to just a thinking
a sounding board.
a sounding board, and also
someone
like
that can possibly lead the other council members and help them when they're struggling with issues. You don't have to go outside of council and say, we're going to wait until we get consult with council, but you have someone who's there readily, immediately, who can help you get through those issues until, you know, you do get counsel for the council.
Right, and I was saying, you know, that could save a lot of legal bills, at least,
I
on the
got a
budget,
point.
right?
You got a point there. We've
Because
been
if you have
hiring
a
a lot of
lawyer-
outside counsel lately.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I think that's a big savings. And right now the budget is a big deal. Balancing the budget, wherever we could save money, that's where we should do it.
So now it's a legislative body. I know we try to explain things as much as possible to people because a lot of people actually do not know
What that means?
the roles of the legislative body, the mayor's office, the controller's office. Because I've seen even when Mayor Davis was in office, I've seen several residents go to city council meetings demanding things that
They
the
can't
council
do.
had actually no power
Right,
over
right.
to do. So what is the role of a council person as far as you're concerned? And as a legislative body, what legislation would you feel that we need to put in place?
So I think the council is in charge of like public safety. They're also in charge of the parking, so they do decide a lot of the parking issues. I think the mayor is the one that handles the day-to-day administrative things, and the council pretty much oversees that, just to put it simply.
Okay. Now, what legislation, and both of y'all, what legislation do you feel we don't have, and you would be interested in enacting for the betterment of Mount Vernon?
Well, when I get there, I'll tell you because I have to go through what's already there.
Yeah, that would be preemptive to say,
speak on that now.
Right. One of the things that I suggested for sitting and council people coming in, I know that when I was in the planning department, we did something with the boards. We did board trainings annually.
Yes, training
I
is
think
very
that it is
important.
extremely necessary to do training for council members, not necessarily to teach them, about city government, but to let them get very familiar with the process, because I think that that's an issue. Anybody coming into something new, for example, when judges are elected and they come on the bench, they go to judge school. So I think
So did the midterm elections, the freshmen.
Senators.
Yeah,
that they
Congressmen,
had like
exactly.
2 weeks before
That's
they got
exactly
in that
right.
they had to go in and report.
That's
and
exactly right.
They're
And
right.
when you're a lawyer too, you have to go to continuing legal education classes
Exactly.
every year. So
Yes.
that way you stay on top of the laws, and that's
Right.
I mean,
So-
council people need that
So,
as well.
yeah, I think Joyce and I spoke about this, and we both agree that, again,
Right.
sitting and even freshmen, council people need to go through some kind of municipal training so that they understand what their roles and responsibilities are, so that we can get the work of government done.
And also, so when you get there, you're like up and running. You don't have there's not like as much of a learning curve as you need to, because this city, we need to be up and running as soon as possible.
Absolutely. Now, I asked her about the importance of a lawyer on the city council. A lot of your experience has been in the planning department. How will that experience be valuable if you're elected as a councilwoman?
Well, the planning department is the meat and potatoes of city government, because without planning and without having a vision to take the city forward, the city goes nowhere. And that's one of the issues that's going on right now. So the planning department interacts with absolutely every body of government within city government. So I have had the pleasure to work with and understand, when I say every department within city government, every department, from the police department to DPW, the council, submitting legislation and getting items on the agenda. I've had to work with the boards, the architectural review, the planning, the zoning board. I've had to work with the youth bureau and youth board, veteran services. I partnered with to do housing work with. I've worked with civil defense when there were civil evictions by the city. So I think that I'm probably one of the people who worked in city government that is so well-rounded and well-versed based on the role and the job that I had within the planning department, where it touched every sector of government. There was not one sector of government that I did not have interaction with. So that's the skill and the value that I bring to this whole situation.
Now, one of the biggest problems, I've done several stories on Black Westchester titled Civil War in City Hall. The council currently, and under Mayor Davis, the council didn't get along with the council sometimes, but the council didn't always get along with. There were councilmen going after the mayor. There were council persons accusing the controller of things. Like the three bodies of governments were not. There was always something going on. There seems to be too much infighting in City Hall.
Yes.
What do bringing the two of you in change with that? I mean, because people are tired of that. People do not want to see
I'm tired of it
the
too.
fighting, and nothing is getting done, to the point that it's
Right.
this one's fault, it's that one's fault, but no one's doing anything.
Well, I think that's the importance of Danielle and I running on a team, because when you run on a team, you share similar ideals and you have similar values and similar goals. So we're running together because we share a lot of the same goals. We want to see this city get better and better. And when you have two people who are in agreement, you can also work on other people. You know, I've negotiated hundreds and hundreds of real estate deals. I'm a real estate attorney. I've done at least, I figured, over 18 years, 700 closings. And when you're negotiating for people, you have to have their best interest at heart. And you also have to know how to speak to people in a respectful way. That's something I think that's missing from the current council, and maybe I should just say not the current council, but just the
City
government.
Hall.
Yeah, City Hall.
Right.
I don't want to blame the council. But people need to work together and to negotiate in a way that's respectful. We just don't have respect for each other anymore, and that's
you
a big
feel,
problem.
You feel you could do that with
Absolutely.
people who disagree with you and people
Absolutely.
who do not like you.
I
and
deal
people
with that
do-
every day as a lawyer. You deal with people who disagree with you, who don't like you. You go in front of judges. Judges expect a certain decorum from people, and they demand respect. So you can't go into a courtroom, and you shouldn't be able to go into City Hall and speak to people in any other way unless you have respect, unless you have a level of respect.
And I want to expound on that by saying, AJ, like I said, I worked through several administrations. I worked through various, not just administrations as far as mayor, but other elected officials. And I managed to, throughout that time, get my work done and do it to a level of proficiency. So saying that to say that I've already done that. I've already had to navigate people, personalities, work with all individuals, again, for the overall goal, which was the betterment of the city of Mount Vernon and getting my work done. Was it easy? No. But you know what? The goal was to provide a particular service or help to the city and the residents in the community. So it was put upon me to figure out a way to get that done. If it meant, you had to work with people, you had to find a common ground, you had to find an area where, even if you had differences, you have to put your differences aside in effort of getting the work of the city done and, the work that the residents charge us with doing. And I think I have done that throughout my years of service and been, pretty, I say, okay, as far as getting the work done. I've been able to do it. So the thing is, we're never going to all agree. But you have to be civil. There has to be civility.
Yes.
You have to find a way, a common ground, to put your differences aside. Again, we have to continue to keep our eye on the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is making Mount Vernon a better place. And if we're all sharing that common goal, we have to explore ways of getting to that goal, which means sometimes you might have to compromise. Sometimes you may have to, kind of change your idea for the betterment or the overall good of what's best for the community. And I think that's what it is. If you're for the community and you're for Mount Vernon, you should be willing to find a way to make it work. And like I said, put personal agendas, put, your personal thoughts or whatever to the side to get the work done. That's what it's about. And I'm going to make a joke. This morning, Joyce and I just met Joyce, but Joyce and I are so similar, it's scary.
Very similar. Every day we find something else. It's crazy.
So this morning, we were heading to an event, and I told Joyce a story. I said, Joyce, me and my sisters, we don't live in the same area of New York State, but it's funny, when I go to visit them, we always seem to have like the same kind of clothes and shoes, and it might be a different color or something to that effect. Well, every time I see Joyce, even this morning when she got to the door, I picked her up. We were dressed almost like identical.
Oh, wow.
But with different colors.
Exactly. It was funny.
So one of the other things going on, and Mayor Davis can just confirm if he can correct me if I'm wrong. With the previous administration, there were debates between the mayor's office, the council, and the controller. They had their fights or whatever, but they were not broadcasted out to the city, where it just looked like steady fighting, and it looks just like fighting. Now, the residents do want a certain level of transparency. I know some of these board of estimate meetings have just been. It just looked like everybody in the room fighting, and it looks like nobody's getting anything done. what are your thoughts on more transparency and the say and having meetings that need to be, where y'all need to iron out things amongst yourselves, and instead of instead of playing for the public,
Right.
performing for the public.
Right. Transparent.
Go ahead, Julie.
I believe transparency is extremely important because we work for the people. When you're in government, you work for the people. So they need to know what's going on. We have to have transparency so they're aware of the issues. We need to speak to them, reach out to them to find out what their concerns are. I don't know why, we can't get along in front of the cameras because it makes us look really bad. And I think we really have to be cognizant of that and make sure that we don't display that because Mount Vernon, I'm tired of turning on the news and there's always something bad going on Mount Vernon. Someone's fighting with this person. This one's fighting with this person. Nothing gets done that way.
It's like a real life reality show.
Right.
Like it's like
Yeah, but
literally
it's not,
being played out.
it's not a good reality show.
There are no
It's
good
not.
reality shows.
And I echo what Joyce is saying, that we have to be transparent. We have to make sure that the public is aware of what's going on. As she stated, the government belongs to the people. We work and serve at the pleasure of the people. When the people are done with us, they elect you. They
Right.
vote you in. When
Or
they're
they
done
vote
with
you out.
they vote you out.
I also wanted to say, Bob has a question after this. Is there a point though where you feel like when there's no agreement that sometimes y'all need to go behind closed doors and have a meeting amongst yourselves and then come back out to the public, as opposed to just steadily fighting
Everything out.
everything? Yeah.
Yeah, those I would agree with you to a lesser extent and say yes to some point that you should have closed sessions because there are some things that need to be taken care of behind
Privately,
closed
right,
doors. Exactly.
privately.
But the ultimately what it is that you again want to make sure that the people are informed. Again, we're doing the work of the people. And I keep taking it back to that because that's what's important, that the people are informed. Additionally, I have another theory. I used to always tell my staff, I was so transparent with them. I would tell them absolutely everything. I said, because if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, guess what? Government must go on. Your service shouldn't stop because Danielle Scholar is no longer here. There should always be somebody who's in the background who could immediately pick it up and keep things rolling. That's the role of a good manager, a good public servant, is that they make sure that, things are transparent to the point that if they're not there, things don't fall apart. That's when you're doing a good job because people can carry on. And that's what we need to be doing.
Dr. Bob.
No, I'll defer to Mayor Davis. He has a comment he'd like to make.
The supposition is that the putting things on the news media is transparency. It is not. It is to put one person in charge and to demean the others. And so that's why it's done. I mean, this administration has clearly done that. And right after the meeting, the so-called transparent meeting, then you go to the media, and that is designed to make some people look good and some people to look bad. So it's not that people think it's the best way to get it done. If you want things to get it done, for instance, Maureen Walker ran against me 3 times. And sometimes we'd argue, but then she'd come up, Ernie, and then we work it out because at the end of the day, we realize that it's the public's work that has to be done. And sometimes you broadcast and sometimes you don't. You don't get in a place when you try to disenfranchise the person you have to work with.
Absolutely.
And that is just what is happening.
Dr. Bob.
So, another supposition that informs at least the recent train of questions that we were asking is that compromise is always possible. And I want to start out by reminding everyone that all of the city council members swear an oath to uphold the law, and the city charter expressly forbids anyone from either taking an action that violates the charter or failing to take actions to see that the charter is duly enforced. I think this is important because the current mayor, Mayor Richard Thomas, has showed intransigence in the face
Yeah,
of
you know, you got to break that down for the people. I'm sorry.
refusal, just a refusal to hear any kind of rational appeals or presentations about actions that he has taken that have been in clear violation of the law. And my concern, because I think what's in being implied is that had people been more willing to compromise, we may not have had the problems that have plagued this administration, and that might be true in some instances, but the key issues, the most explosive issues that have paralyzed the city government are ones that there should be no compromise over.
And I agree.
And I want to know,
Okay.
from the city council perspective, the city council candidates, I should say, how would you handle an intransigent mayor that refuses to adhere to the city charter, and threatens to harm the interests of the city without perhaps rehashing a lot of the sort of pointless actions or seemingly ineffective actions that were taken over the past couple of years by the council as a whole?
Well, I think the best way to deal with someone like that is exposure. I mean, I think once you expose people and their actions to the public, whether it's by a press release or whatever you need to do, that's the best way to handle that type of situation. If someone doesn't have the city's best interest at heart, then that needs to be exposed. That's
Right.
how I feel.
I want to add to what Joyce said by saying that from what I know about the charter, and working in city government, the charter has remedies for every problem. It
Built
spells
in,
out
built
remedies
in.
for every problem that they've encountered, but you have to use the charter to combat some of the things that have been going on. And if the charter cannot solve the problems, the remedy is you have to take court action to enforce the charter, and you have to have good, adequate legal counsel to make sure that they can bring forth those charges to combat people not following the charter.
I want to come back to an issue because during the recent mayoral forum that took place, candidate Sean Patterson Howard fielded a question where she was asked about whether she would adhere specifically
we're not
to
taking any calls
age-
right now. So we're not taking any calls, so we can get as much questions in with the candidates.
So-
If you have a comment, you can leave it in the section, and I will read it if I can. So,
Okay.
sorry, Bob.
Candidate Patterson Howard fielded a question in which she was asked whether or not she would continue to, whether she would look for personnel to staff her administration outside of the city when generally the public officers laws does require that a good number of our executive officers be residents
Or move here, right?
or move here.
Right.
And candidate Patterson Howard, I was very, very disturbed by her answer, to be quite honest, because she said that Mount Vernon essentially needs to look outside of the city in order to find qualified staff to fill certain positions, which in principle I don't have a problem with, but you cannot arbitrarily decide to ignore the residency requirement in order to do so.
Well,
And so it seems to me this has been a major source of contention for the past 4 years as to whether or not Mayor Thomas acted within the bounds of the law when he decided to bring in a number of personnel that did not reside in the city nor decided to move to the city. I know it has been the position of many people, and perhaps even Mayor Davis himself, that it is within the right of the city council, the sitting government, to simply strike a agreement between the different branches of government that they're going to ignore the residency requirement. And I find that troubling, and I want to know.
You mean ignore by giving the person permission to take the office, even though they don't move
make
here?
some agreement and okay, no, you don't have to. It's okay with us. And I want to know: what is your position about the residency requirements? Are you going to enforce the residency requirement for the appointment of executive officers in accordance to the letter and the spirit of the law?
I think I just want to kind of address it from what I know. I think that the court had ruled, if I'm not mistaken, that residency was not required for, the individual. So in my opinion,
No.
was that the ruling? I think that was the ruling.
No.
Right.
The ruling was that they couldn't. I think the
couldn't
council
enforce
stopped.
it?
No, I think they stopped their paychecks. That
Right.
they stopped it. Like, you still have to go through the process. This is a process.
Right.
They made the positions non-vacant, and then sent a letter to the controller to discontinue them being paid.
Right.
Okay.
That is what
Okay.
the judge ruled on. But the other judge ruled that the charter was clear, and there was no need for the judge to make a ruling because the charter is clear, and y'all are coming here for us to solve things that y'all already have in writing.
Right.
And,
You have to just look at the
he
charter.
gave like a scolding to the government about what their job was in his ruling.
So basically, yeah, you have to look at the charter, whatever the law is. You follow it. I mean, there's a reason. There's a reason why it's in the charter.
Right.
I mean, there's a reason why the law was created, and as a lawyer, you look at the intent of the people who create the charter, and I'm sure their intent was that to have people who were vested in the interest of the city. So that's why you want people who live in the city or who are going to move to the city.
You want a DPW commissioner who has to drive over the same potholes you do.
Right, exactly.
Because then he might
garbage is not
have a vested interest in getting
Exactly.
some of them potholes filled.
So more people that don't live here, why would they care if the garbage gets picked up or not? Why would they care?
Right.
Also, AJ, you brought up DPW. That's a good example of, in inclement weather, you want people
Right.
who are readily available in the community. You don't
Right,
want
to be
somebody
out
living
there
up in Goshen
who can't
trying
get
to
to
get
Mount
down to
Vernon.
work
Exactly.
in a storm. It just doesn't work.
No.
Two comments were made when you said about when you were speaking on fighting and taking court action and stuff.
Uh-huh.
That Andre Wallace has been doing that since day one, but the charter needs to be revised. There's been a whole bunch of people about the revision of the charter, about there being certain loopholes like that are not clear, and since they're not clear, the current mayor has exploited these defects in the charter. So do you have any? There's been a lot of talk about revision of the charter and the charter needing to be revised. Do you have any thoughts on that as possible future councilwomen?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Everything needs to be revised and
At some
updated
period.
periodically.
From 1922, is that when it was created?
Exactly.
1922. I mean, things have changed.
Absolutely. The world changes.
Yes,
And
technology
it definitely,
changes.
there needs to be ongoing review and updating of, the charter and
Laws.
policies and laws, and the world
Absolutely.
changes.
Absolutely.
For example, social media didn't exist when the charter was created.
Did
So
phones
you-
exist? I don't even know if telephones exist.
So you have
Existed.
to adapt with the world, which means that's a no-brainer. You
But
have
at the sorry, Danielle. But at the same time, you have to make sure that you're not just revising things to be in one person's favor or to manipulate the government, or it has to be the public interest has to be what you're aiming for, what you're looking at, the end result.
Councilwoman, let me just get you next. Councilwoman Lisa Copeland, who was council president last year, she said during the vote for the budget, she said a good deal is when nobody gets their way, where everybody has, you know what I'm saying? Everybody has put
That's
in what
right.
they want, but nobody comes out 100% satisfied. Then that's a good deal. And then that was in her decision in voting for the budget, which she
Right.
might not agree with, but we needed a budget at the time.
Right.
and
Right.
she-
That's
she
what
went-
compromise is. And as a lawyer, that's what we also say that a good closing is when nobody's happy. somebody buys a house, somebody sells a house. No one's going to get everything they want on the sale. No one's going to get everything they want on the buy, and government is the same. Everyone has to compromise, which means you have to give a little to get some.
And as far as the revision, I think, the Constitution in this country has been amended several times because what started out
Right.
it wasn't good for today.
It
wasn't good for us.
It wasn't good for us. Yeah.
Has to
Exactly.
change with times.
Dr. Bob has a question.
Yeah, so Council Picari in his
Corporation Counsel, right?
corporation, former, I guess, yeah, Corporation Council, Picari in his rationalization of the mayor's selection of non-residents to serve in executive positions within the administration, maintain that Mount Vernon simply does not have a sufficient pool of talent for us to be able to find the expertise within the city borders in order to carry out these fulfill government functions. I went and I actually reviewed this census data and found that there were over 5,000 people in the city of Mount Vernon who had advanced degrees that would
Wow.
be of a similar level of education that you might expect for persons who are serving in the most pivotal executive positions. So I want to know just generally, what's your position? Do you think Mount Vernon has a sufficient pool of talent to fulfill all of the important governmental functions? And to say, and B, if we don't, do you think that one of the possible charter revisions that we could consider, and I think this would actually have to have the approval of the New York State legislature, to maybe change some of the residency requirements for key positions? And Mayor Davis may even want to weigh on this as well. I see his mind sort of going.
Go ahead, Mayor.
This is kind of simple. You just move in.
Right, you move
Right,
people.
okay.
You move
I
some
mean,
people
I mean,
around.
Same thing with
That's
like
all good.
corporations. When,
Yeah,
when
you
you get a
move-
job in North
Yep.
Dakota,
Right, they move you
you
there.
move your family to
Right.
North Dakota. When,
Absolutely.
when they
you're-
closed General Motors in Tarrytown,
Exactly.
they moved my father
to where they
to
needed
Metro
him to go.
Atlanta
Yes.
to work at the Doraville
Plant. Yep.
and they gave him money, I guess a budget to
Right.
they housed him for X amount of months
Sure.
till he found a house there.
Your dad,
And then
my
he
dad?
did- and then right, and then he moved the rest of his family. He moved his family down. So I mean
that's
that's just
what
local.
they do. Right.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what you do.
Right. So I don't think that the issue is finding people in the community. There's a huge pool, as he said, of
Mhm.
talented people.
Right. They're not
And
looking very
as
hard.
the former Mayor Davis said, once you're hired, if it comes to them after searching extensively and doing due diligence, and they
Right.
cannot find people who meet that criteria, and you're from outside of the area, you must come and be a part of the community to carry out the work of the community. If you're not, I think it's more difficult to carry out that work if you're not a part of the community.
Right.
If you're commuting in every day.
One of the comments Mayor Davis said in several interviews and told me personally, he said Mount Vernon is very incestuous, meaning that everybody has a relationship with everybody. Is there situations where every now and then for a certain position, I'm not talking about all the positions, where you do bring somebody who has no relationship to their families go back 3 generations with each other and they went to high
Everybody's
school with each
family with
other
somebody.
and
That's
my cousin is married to your cousin
Right.
and
Right.
you know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
do you see a possibility where that could be a benefit in 1 or 2 particular positions?
I'm going to say
Absolutely.
no. I'm going to
gonna
say
say
no,
yes.
and I'm going to use myself as an example.
I'm going to use myself.
I
as
was
an
the
example.
director of a program that worked with people with HIV and AIDS, one of the most sensitive hotbed topics at the time. There are laws around confidentiality related to HIV and AIDS and disclosing people's status. I have worked in that field for like 15, 16 years or longer without ever breaking confidentiality. So I'm an example that if you're a professional, you do your job, you serve the people, and that's what you do. So I would disagree with you with that.
Okay, maybe. So I agree with
And,
Danielle
I,
in that
and again, I
instance.
said not every position, but
Right, certain positions.
Right.
Certain
Well, that
position every
position,
now
and
right.
then.
Yeah, and I'm
Right.
saying that position is something that, again, is a really sensitive kind of position because remember, HIV and AIDS. If people knew you had AIDS,
Yeah.
it was like you were set on an island by
Ostracized.
yourself,
Right.
ostracized.
Yep.
There's so much stigma, excuse me, around the issue that people didn't even sometimes want to come up to my office and touch the doorknob for fear that if they touched the doorknob, they were going to catch AIDS, which we
Wow.
know is
and,
like
and a
not
lot of that had to do with a lack of education about what it was.
Absolutely.
Right.
It was the new
Ignorance.
scary thing. Like,
Yeah.
oh my God,
Ignorance.
you got the cooties.
Right.
God damn, like,
Absolutely.
I know.
So that's
Stay
an
away, stay
example,
away.
AJ, where, again, it doesn't necessarily mean that someone from the community can't do the job. You have to carry yourself as a professional. If you have credentials that allow you to do a particular work or job, you have to carry yourself like a professional.
I wanted to hear.
And I was gonna say yes because I don't have any people that I know in government. I told you I'm not a politician. I'm a neighbor and I'm an outsider kind of. And people are like, oh, but you're an outsider. And I said, well, that's what makes me good because I don't owe anybody anything. I don't know anyone. I don't need to pay back anybody favors. And I think that's part of the problem we have right now in the government. People owe other people favors and they want to, there's so much nepotism going on that it's good to have an outsider come in. Outsider meaning I live there, but I'm not caught up in all the government politics.
Because I do agree with the like I was informed by family members of mine who have been in city government that my family and Sean Patterson family goes way back, like 3-4 generations, and that was the reason I should support her.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
And then no disrespect to her or anything, or
Right,
that
right,
I'm not
right.
or am supporting her,
Right.
but that shouldn't be my reason.
Exactly.
And I had relatives who have moved away wanted to come back and campaign for her just
Right.
because they
Just
grew up together.
Right, exactly.
And I don't think that's a good reason. I wonder
Neither.
I didn't give you a chance to, for people that's just checking you out for the first time, I know there's 9 days left before there's only been so much I can ask you and for your address. Social media, websites, how can people
We're
that
on
listen
Facebook.
reach out to you?
We're on Facebook. We both have
Yeah, we
Facebook
have
pages.
Facebook pages. Danielle Scala for City Council is my Facebook page. Website is daniellescholar.com.
Okay.
And then email is daniellescholar419@gmail.com.
and I also have a Facebook page, Joyce Brown for City Council. And should I give my email address? I feel like I'm going to get a lot of free legal advice questions.
Well, I mean, you gotta have a email
I
set up
would
for the
hope
campaign.
Transparency,
You gotta have
transparency,
an email
Miss
set up for
Brown.
the campaign, so it's only for the
Transparency,
campaign.
Miss
Yeah.
Brown. You must get it up.
Okay. Joyce Brown, ESQ@gmail.com.
Okay.
Thanks,
and,
everyone.
And last words. Any questions I didn't ask you that you want people to know about you? Take a couple of minutes. Just why you're that candidate. Why people should vote for you.
I believe that we can turn this city around. I would like to get involved. I've waited a long time. I have 2 children. They're older now, so I figured now is the best time for me to get involved. Again, I'm a lawyer with a finance background. I think I bring a lot to the table. I'm running with Danielle because we share similar ideals, and now is the time we really need to vote and get out there and voice our opinions and let the government know that we need changes and we need them now.
Okay, I would say that you should vote for me because I will continue to do what I have done, which is to provide quality community service and make sure that I am carrying out the work of the people and that I am doing everything I can do to advance Mount Vernon. Mount Vernon, unfortunately, has been left behind by a lot of our neighbors, and we need to quickly catch up. I'll just say this real quick. I remember years ago when I first started working in the planning department that Mount Vernon was challenged when we were going to do the big box project down on Sanford Boulevard, Target, Best Buy, TJ Maxx by the city of Pelham, and it had to do with the sewer line. Mount Vernon, and Pelham went to court. Mount Vernon was victorious, was able to get what they needed in a way of the sewer line and effort to move forth with the project. But Mount Vernon's development seemed to have stopped at that point.
Yes.
But when I look over at the community that fought Mount Vernon, Pelham Manor,
Yes.
I look how they looked at what was done in Mount Vernon in that area, and they expounded on that and took that idea. And now when you go over the Fulton Avenue Bridge, they took our idea and they ran with it.
No.
So Mount Vernon, we need to catch up. We have to catch up to our neighbors. You know, Pelham, New Rochelle, Yonkers, we're being left behind. And I think that you're going to need a team of competent people to help the city catch up. We can catch up. It's doable. But you have to have the right people, people who have the best interests of the community in mind, people who have the experience. And, you know, we all are willing to and have to work collectively to get the work done.
Now, this is my last comment and question. So I say this, and I piss off everybody who's ever ran on a ticket, and I have to do it again. I have to be consistent. I believe in tickets, and I don't believe in tickets. I believe sometimes that you need to vote for the best person in each position, and not just always just vote row A all the way, because these are all people running together. If you feel like these people are the best people in each position, then that's what you should do. I've encouraged people to do that for 5 years, and I need to be consistent here as well. But y'all talk about running as a team. You're gonna have to work with people that are not that weren't
On
in your team that don't have like-minded ideas. Will you be able to, because you said, you know, as a team we'll work together, and that's been said a lot at the debates and other places I've heard you speak.
Right.
You're going to be working with at least 3 other people, and or maybe 4 other people. If one
Absolutely.
of y'all make it and the other one doesn't.
Absolutely.
Right.
They won't be always like-minded of you, and they won't have everything in common in you. How are you going, the people who need, they need to know that y'all can still work with everybody, even when they're not like-minded. They're not on your team.
AJ?
I do that. I do that every
I
day.
can answer that easily.
I do that every day.
I work overall for Team Mount Vernon. I'm
That's
for
right.
Team Mount Vernon, which means, again, I keep going back to this. I've said it throughout running for this office, that I am Team Mount Vernon. I'm for the community. So I am going to do whatever it takes for the best interest of the community to be heard. I'm working. We do talk about teamwork a lot, because that's the message, and that's what overall needs to be done in Mount Vernon.
Right.
You need people to work in a team. We got to learn the lessons of teamwork in order to get things done. We have to work collectively. We have to work hard. But the overall goal for any team in this situation is that you have to remember what team you're on. We're on Team Mount Vernon, which means we're working for the overall good of the city of Mount Vernon. So that's my response.
Exactly. And I just want to add to that as a lawyer, you do that every day. You are fighting or arguing with someone every day, and you always, the end goal. Debating. Okay, sorry, fighting.
People think arguing, that's what we got now. Oh, it's arguing.
Yeah.
Okay, disagreeing. But at the end, you have to come to an agreement. That's what lawyers do.
So now I'm going to flip it. You are on a team. The next guest is somebody y'all decided to associate yourself with. Why? And then we're going to have him come in.
Okay. I think I said earlier that he shares a lot of the same ideals.
Andre, can you come in the studio?
He wants what's best for the city. He's already doing part of the job as the mayor, you know, getting things done. He fights for the citizens whenever he gets a chance. You'll see him fighting for the citizens. And I agree with a lot of his philosophy about the city government and what he wants to see, his vision of Mount Vernon, which is a positive one and a prosperous one for everyone.
I'm next. I'm running with Andre Wallace, because Andre Wallace has the city of Mount Vernon's best interests at heart. He has stood up on issues when it wasn't popular to do. He's put himself out there both personally and professionally to defend the people of the city of Mount Vernon, and I think those are the things that you want in a mayor. You want somebody who has does not put their self-interest above the interests of the public. You want somebody who's going to be for the people and for the public and for making the city a better place for all of us, and I think that's what he's been doing.
Exactly.
Where are you on the ballot?
11A.
12A.
Okay.
We're right next to each other.
I see.
Easy pick.
And we're gonna as we have Andre Wallace come into the studio. I want to thank y'all for coming. Y'all are welcome to stay, or
We're gonna stay.
or if you'll leave.
We'll stay.